Good morning, everyone. I see we have quite a few attendees. I hope you're all feeling great this morning and fresh Monday morning. Just waiting for a few more to log in, and then we are going to proceed. Just one more minute. Okay, without further ado, good morning, everyone. Thank you all for making the time to come and join us for our annual student living news literacy. This is where we have editors and a couple of people in the industry that have got the knowledge that are willing to share with our students. So this year we've actually opened it up to not just be for our interns as Student Living SA. We have opened it up to the community media support services publishers so that you can also receive some knowledge. So we're going to start off by introducing our editor for Student Living SA, which is Mr. Lesiba Machaka. So you may continue to go on, sir.
Thank you very much, Neo. Thank you very much for the organizers and everyone here, whether you're a student, a working journalist, or simply someone passionate about the role of the media in our society. Let me briefly introduce Student Living. We are a stepping stone for journalism student from accreditation, a platform where aspiring reporters can have their work published across civic and interest-based channels. We pair students with experienced industry professionals who provide mentorship, helping them refine their reporting, strengthen their voices, and understand the realities of the newsroom. So thank you very much, Neo, for introducing me. My name is Lesiba Machaka, and I am the editor-in-chief for Student Living. So this leads to today's theme for me, grooming young journalists. It's not just about teaching how to write an article. It's about shaping professionals who can think critically, verify facts, and uphold the values of accuracy, fairness, and balance. It's about providing both the tools and the confidence to tell stories that make an impact in formats that resonate with modern audiences. Mentorship plays a vital role. We connect students with editors, reporters, and media specialists who have worked through the pressures and deadlines of the industry so that the next generations learns not only the skills but also the resilience required in this profession. Workshops like this are part of one that set apart the journey. Over the next 2 days, you'll be hearing about the evolving tools of journalism, from podcast to TikTok, and explore how they can be used with purpose and in integrity. And today, I encourage every one of you to take notes and ask questions and connect with our speakers. The relationship and knowledge you can build here could be the first stepping stone towards a lasting career in the media industry. Thank you very much, Neo, for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Mr. Isiba. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce our first speaker. This is Mr. Shirley Brejol. from Johannesburg. She is going to be talking about solutions journalism. So, solutions journalism, it's really with us inviting her here. It's to discuss what solutions journalism is all about. This is emphasizing storytelling by and about the people, places, and events. This is understanding this approach is crucial for today's news reporting. So, as future journalists, grasping the power and the responsibility of media is essential. Many newsrooms, including Southern Globe, which is a publication that is owned by Mrs. Shirley, has played key roles in advocating for democracy. Her publications, which are Orange Farm News, Globe Post, and Walkerville and Savannah City Times, empower their communities. In her session, she'll share insights on their roles and newsrooms operations influenced by the 2023 News Literacy Workshop. All right, I hope you enjoy that. You may go through, Shirley.
No, we're just trying to get the slides together. Okay, cool.
No problem at all.
Morning,
You
everyone.
can see the introduction to solutions journalism so far. So I think we
Okay, awesome.
awesome. Great.
Hi, cool. Hi, everyone. It's Shirley Govender. I'm so excited to be here. I absolutely love solutions journalism. I'm a publisher, community journalist, which means that I have a special passion to ensure that we have a healthy news diet, that everyone out there appreciates the news, and that we're giving them what they want to read. Okay. So today I'm going to be talking about solutions journalism and why it matters and how you can how you can make that decision to be a positive news entrepreneur. Please note that before the end of the session, I will be sharing resources from the Solutions Journalism Network that you can then go on and do additional reading should you wish to. I would like everyone to also, for us to get to know each other. I don't want me to be in a situation where I'm talking to you. Let's have a conversation as well, apart from the presentation, the facilitation. Would you be kind enough to perhaps introduce yourselves into the chat box, who you are and whether you're a student, are you a journalist, are you a publisher like me? I'd love to get to know you a little bit better. Okay. And there will be time for questions as well if you need to. You can put your hand up or you can include your question in the chat. Okay, so news organizations currently have been epically transforming by joining the global shift towards building a better news ecosystem and move us out of the direction of fear and conflict-based reporting more into a news offering of hope. Very often, solutions journalism is called hope with teeth. As the co-founder of the Solutions Journalism Network puts it. So this is what we're going to be doing today. Hi, Aneta. You will understand what solutions journalism is, why solutions journalism is important, and why you should be doing it. And also for a few tips about how to do this, even including the photography. Okay. So as an icebreaker, can I ask you about something that's working in your community? What is working in your community? Can you put that into the chat box? So this question is intended to disrupt the patterns on thinking from conflict-based to changing that mindset into looking at it in another way. It's called flipping the script. Sorry, I'm trying to get my chat here and I can't seem to find it. Can you pick up the chat on your side? Anyone? Can we put it into the chat? Give me one thing, one line of something that's working in your community. No one? There must be something. Somebody's doing something. There's widely shared social problems. So whether it's developing community-led solutions in terms of parks or taxi ranks or libraries in terms of education, if not, the purpose of this is basically to flip the script, like I said again, and give you, when we do that, when we start looking at the alternatives, then you realize there's more to just the problems. And it gives you a sense of power as a journalist, as a resident, as a citizen in the country. That there are people who are making amazing, doing amazing things, and that can stop feeding the negativity diet that we're so exposed to. It also gives you a more accurate picture of reality when you and it builds hope, it creates confidence in the news and trust in the news. Okay, so can everybody hear me?
Yes, you're very audible, Shelley.
Okay, just go back. All right. So if you look at these front pages, this is the kind of news that's been put out. These pages are from about, well, it's a curation of front pages, but you've just to look at it. Body count, darkest hour, deaths, drowning, teen shot, crises. That's the kind of news diet that we've been being exposed to. We've been constantly being bombarded by things that are happening around us. And these have negative consequences. These headlines on the devastating floods and the Phoenix uprising. And this is why I use these slides, because it shows quite accurately what the world out there, what kind of headlines we're putting out there as journalists and as publishers. How do we change that? How can we intentionally decide, I want to be a positive news entrepreneur? Because that's exactly what we are. And how do we balance the news? How do we widen the lens of how we report? Here's another front page. So this questions the narrative around natural disasters. Okay. Aerial footage. And here's a picture here of exactly, the impact. Oh my goodness. The impact of the floods in KZN. Here again, Bloomberg, Ebola is coming. Who knows how Ebola was stopped? These all scary things that get people anxious and troubled. And another headline around the recent tsunamis in Japan. But this is a YouTube a still that I took off a video. Triggers tsunami warnings. That's terrifying in itself. So news avoidance, you may have heard of this. News avoidance, news fatigue. People are tired. People are really, really tired, and they're no longer trusting what we are putting out. When we expose audiences to what's working, Solutions Journalism offers a more accurate view of how the world works, what our role in it is, and what we can do about it. It gives us a sense of agency to act. Okay, so it's news consumption, and this is why I chose this image. Very powerful way of people don't watch the news. I mean, how many of you are actually watching the news? For me, as a news editor, I can't even remember when last I watched news on TV, or I'm catching the radio news in brief as I'm driving somewhere. So this is exactly what happens. Your readers or your audience are anxious, they're depressed, they become disempowered, and people isolate themselves, become more fearful. So this is a report. These are some numbers which show how many people, there are less and less, more and more people who are avoiding the news, less and less people will have confidence in the news. So here's some of the stats on this. So some of this is around, these were stats from 2023. And each year that the Reuters Institute Digital News Reports comes out with a survey. And the 42% is how it stands right now, as of about 3 years ago, where they do surveys across selected markets globally. And this is 42% who are avoiding the news, and that's scary because how do we create confidence in news? How do we sell our newspapers? How do we build audience engagement? We're always talking about this when more and more people are turning away. So that's up to us now to change. We need to flip that script from conflict to a more balanced news diet. People say it's too negative. People are arguing over the news. And the author of this report, Nick Newman, he says that very often the kind of news that we are putting out there is not necessarily what our audience want to read. And especially now, so with digital, there's so much, you have an avalanche of, you wake up in the morning, you're on your cell phone. There's just so much to see. And when you got really negative news of pandemics and all of that, if you guys remember how COVID went down, every day it was terrifying. And every time there was supposed to be a family meeting with our president, everybody was holding their heads and said, God, what's going to happen now? So that's exactly why we have this high percentage of 42%. So if we only told what's wrong in the world, then we have no confidence. We can't build communities. We can't be what happens to our careers as journalists. We need to change. We need to rethink how we're working. Okay, so here's a slide that comes from the Solutions Journalism Network. What I didn't say earlier was that I'm a trained Solutions Journalism Network trainer, and they are an organization. They're US-based but worldwide, in terms of trying to rebalance the news, train more journalists, and create an appetite for reading and the news. So you'll find, like you saw with the front pages that I showed you earlier, it's loud, it's in your face, it's scary. This is why problems scream. And that creates a news fatigue and news avoidance and overwhelm. On the other side, when we start reporting as in terms of solutions and that approach, you'll find that exactly what I've been saying already. You're building trust, you're creating hope, and it gives communities a voice as well, because you're including them in the stories when you're writing them. So what exactly is solutions journalism? I'm going to go into this video now. It'll give you a quick hit on what, why, and how. Oh gosh, you seem to have a volume issue. Can everybody hear the video? Is it just me?
We can't hear
Really.
You can't. Okay, one moment. Let me try and get some help from around this. Just get a hold of Z. Neo, are you able to help are you able to assist from your side on this?
I think if you can share the link, let me see if I can.
Okay, so I'm going to try and fix it, but in the meantime, this video basically talks about everything I've said already. We'll try and fix it and share in a little bit for purposes of time. So this is oh goodness, I've got such a sensitive screen. This is David Bornstein. Now, he's one of the co-founders of the Solutions Journalism Network, and they, like I said, they're committed to producing rigorous reporting on responses to social problems, which is the essence of solutions journalism. But he's talking about how we can flip the switch again, but we'll go back to that as soon as I'm able to fix this. Okay, so what exactly is solutions journalism? I'm going to this is how Solutions Journalism Network defines solutions journalism. It is rigorous, evidence-based reporting on responses to social problems. It's also something that's happening now and the effect it's producing. It can't be something that's happening in the future, it has to happen now. Key aspect and what makes solutions journalism different to any other journalism approaches is the 4 pillars, okay? It has to be reporting on the response to a problem, how that's worked, how that's not worked, okay? It also describes without a response, without evidence, there is no solution story. Okay, the narrative of the story is driven by the response. So the entire story, it literally unveils step by step how that is being implemented, how it's being monitored, how it's being managed, and the effect it's producing. Evidence, solutions journalism is very evidence-based. So it's evidence of impact. You looked at effectiveness. It could be a failed response as well. There could be evidence where that response is not working, which means that it can be that also forms part of solution, because solutions journalism is not all about perfect responses. It's about looking at both sides, because one can learn from a response that's not working. Okay, and then you've got evidence is also driven by data, which is quantitative, and qualitative, which is your interviews, your surveys, I'll show you later the story that we did with Rich and Source, and how I took to Facebook and we asked a question pertaining to this project, and the responses there. So you're able to measure people responses. Okay. Remember that accurate evidence builds trust. It reduces bias and it also encourages action. One of the nice things about solutions is it holds people to account, but we're going to get there in a little bit. So if a story does not have a response, it is not a solution story again. Evidence will also show the impact or the effectiveness or the lack thereof, also important. What you do not find in that as evidence is something that somebody else looking at this could add and add value to a project that they would be launching, or in working with. You will even find that even though responders and beneficiaries are willing to share how their project is working, may not always be as upfront about its failings. Okay, so the third pillar is insight, and it's absolutely, all these pillars are absolutely essential. So insights is the journey you take a reader on and the learnings that come out of that, what you've written about, and it helps others to respond as well. So in other words, they can take up a project, they can add value to their project from the learnings of other people. Remember, communities, they want to see, they don't want to be told what their problems are. They want to see working models of how that's being responded to. And then you've got limitations. Now, every story, every article, it's going to be 5 minutes, every story would have limitations or cautions, caveats. Excuse me. So it is your job as the journalist to be as honest as possible. You need to find out what is not working as much as it is important to find out what is working. So a responsible journalist will cover this, will identify it, and will indicate if further research or information will be forthcoming. So according to seasoned journalists, I find that the best practice when it comes to solutions is to describe the response fully. Readers should be able to see exactly how a solution is being implemented, and the pillars can help structure or strengthen an audience's connection to the story and differentiate between just from a researched the 4 pillars, or it just being another maybe a feel good or a fluff piece. Okay. is solutions journalism advocacy? This is a common question that comes up during when we're training in solutions. And so please note, okay, I'm going to just pull up all of these points. Not that we don't overclaim or try to predict the future. So because it's such a realistic way of reporting through the 4 pillars. So that's if you look at these questions and you apply it to a story you've done, it's also a way of vetting the effectiveness of the response. We are examining a response. We're not promoting or forcing an idea onto the reader. Always remember, there is no silver bullet. You are being objective. This is why you are including limitations and the unknowns into the story. We are in the business of impact, right? That's why we do what we do. We want to hold people to account. We want to have impact. We want to make a difference. And well, that's at least in my case, because that's why I started my newspapers, to want to change the world. So this is exactly, it's not, I want to clear that again. You are not promoting a certain model of a solution. Okay, you're basically opening it up to the world. Readers decide which way they want to go. Flipping the script, I mentioned this earlier. It's about just shifting from problem or centered or what's broken to what's working. Somewhere there is somebody who's trying to deal with a widely shared social problem. Somebody's working on it, and there are different ways to do this. And if something is broken, there's a group who says they have a way to fix it. So it's a move away from focusing on what's broken or it's not working to engaging with communities or working with communities who are engaging with problems and finding promising solutions. So it's a matter of reframing or reporting through credible examples of responses. It just makes communities feel more powerful and in control of their lives. So in order to understand solutions journalism, you need to know what it is versus what it's not, okay? So I'm going straight into a short solutions piece from Kenya. I love quoting stories from the African continent because you find very often it's always, it's over, overseas, the UK, US, running lots of solution stories. And there's a fair amount of solutions stories coming out of East Africa, Kenya, Nigeria, Uganda. So I'm not seeing enough South African stories on there. This is why we're having more and more of these trainings. So here's a situation of the County Health Program. You'll find that in 2018, there were 531 women who died during childbirth or pregnancy. And then that changed after this health program came into effect. It was community-led. There were volunteers. Okay, so we're not talking just about all these deaths and the trauma of the mothers and the deficits by the government to provide the healthcare. That problem is probably you write a solutions once the problem is widely known. And in this case, this organization came together to reduce maternal and infant mortality rates by connecting mothers with community health volunteers. And if you notice the picture, I want you to pay attention to the picture as well. You can see the uniform. Community health volunteer, another community health volunteer, the third one in the picture. This possibly could be officials, but it speaks to the headline. Okay, and it seems like they're having some kind of discussion for training in this particular sub-county. So, solutions journalism is not a theory. It is not. If you look at this here, then the first part talks about plans to counter negative messages to adolescents. Okay, it is a plan. It is something they have not started yet. It's not in process. It is a theory. The second part looks at a success story or something that's already in process. These are Iceland teens who have successfully kicked teenage drinking and over the past 2 decades. And this was thanks to a community-led initiative, community-focused approach involving legal curfews, increased parental involvement, and expanded after-school facilities and activities. So it takes away the responsibility, individual responsibility from these kids that you see, and emphasizes societal support. That is the essence. Also, it's very close. That is solutions journalism. Here's something else. So it's not an afterthought. Okay, it is not something. If you're doing a story, you've got 2 or 3 lines, and that would be an afterthought when you're writing. This was actually it was a documentary, a 2-hour long documentary that talks about the U.S. Criminal justice system, but hints at a couple of possible solutions towards the end. On the other side, you've got this is the core story. So the solution is the core part of the story. It drives the narrative of the story, as I said earlier. And this is Finland's open prisons where inmates actually have the keys, this is the last phase of the penal system in Finland, where they try to what's the word? Create a mindset with these inmates, or to be able to reintegrate into society. That was the thing. And yeah, so this is a unique privilege, and it's working successfully because these prisoners know they're about to be released, and it's a very caring system, I must tell you. Okay. It is not activism. Remember what I said earlier? We're not advocating for a particular result or an end game. So here you've got Canderel launches this campaign, okay? And this is very much about a company that's getting involved. It's like a CSI program that they were doing. On the other side, we are reporting on responses to problems, how France became a global leader in curbing food waste. So it's a global initiative to a widely shared problem. And this happened in 2016 when France became the first country in the world to prohibit supermarkets from throwing away food. And so they were kind of encouraged, and they were happy participants to be able to donate this food, or face a fine. Okay. So it is not solutions journalism, it's not fluff. So in this case, you've got this child that gives the teacher some money, and that is a feel-good story. It is a story. There are different types of stories that you're writing, but it's not solutions journalism. It's about one person and the child, and then of course the teacher. And we can identify with this in the South African context because the teachers are not earning much. Perhaps that was in this case as well. And he wanted to give his allowance to his teacher, but it could also be because he loved his teacher. So it's not a solution story. So how do I find the best solution story? You, the journalist, are not looking for a solution story. You are looking for responses, or stories where there's a reaction to a widely shared problem, by either writing about how a solution was applied and the outcome, and then applying the 4 pillars. Okay. Oh my goodness. Okay, let's talk about evidence. So why is evidence important? Remember I said it's one of the 4 pillars that makes up a solution story. Remember, when you're writing solutions, if a story does not have the 4 pillars, it's not considered a complete solution story. So it is evidence-based reporting. So it is a difference. So that makes it the difference between any other story and a solutions. You can't work with an untested theory. It's not about good intentions. It's not about guessing. Okay. So this is what evidence means: numerical or descriptive. Okay, remember I said quantitative, qualitative, numerical, which is data. I'll show you an example later of a story that I did. And then qualitative, as we're talking to people. Qualitative, again, it's about the numbers. Vetting evidence. This is very important. You need enough evidence for it to be credible. You need to interrogate the data, just as you would with a normal story that you're working in your newsroom. Double check the facts. And one of the nice things about solutions is it counteracts disinformation, misinformation, and with all the peddling of with the bad players putting out all of this fake news out there. Solutions journalism counters all of that. Okay, you need to reflect on what is coming through with your interviews, what is coming through with the data. Well, speaking to people, trying to understand how they're putting this together. Look at the beneficiaries, look at the implementers. Is it a quality study if you're looking at a study? Is it by the Stats SA, for example? Is there a body that's perhaps peer reviewed, professional bodies that are looking at these things? In the case of like water contamination, for example. And who paid for the research? So, oftentimes, sometimes you're going to get an interested party who has their own motives wanting to pay for a study because it influences their bottom line in terms of their revenues. So you've got to be mindful of the evidence that's coming through. More, be sure to tell your audience about what you don't know, like with the limitations. This does not undermine the story. Remember that. It helps with context. It avoids sounding like once a solution is or has been applied, the problem will disappear altogether. There is no silver bullet. There's no perfect solution. And every community will take the basics of a model to fix a problem and amend it or tailor it to suit the needs of their particular situation. Are there any questions at this point? So I've just been talking. I said we'll have a conversation. Anyone? You sure about everything? I'll help with that. We'll go through. I'll do a roundup again. I'll keep reinforcing what I've been saying. So why practice solutions journalism? It's just good journalism. I hope it's making sense to you. It just makes stories stronger, and for all the reasons that's on the slide. It holds people. It holds when we say a problem is seen as intractable, where you are told by Joburg Water or Eskom that it is what it is. There's nothing we can do about this. Solutions journalism it deals with this. When you use models of working solutions or failures in those solutions, it shows successful models show that problems can be overcome. There's a way to deal with them. And I'll show you later how it embarrasses the Cleveland people that make the decisions in government and how they were embarrassed into making a difference because solutions journalism proved that there were cities or there were towns that were successfully dealing with lead poisoning issue. Another thing about solutions journalism, it's about being when you're talking about the problems, remember that front page I showed you with all the floods and that? So that is watchdog. You're creating an awareness of the problem, and then you're becoming a guide dog. When you show people, that's what solutions does. It helps people navigate their lives. And I like this slide here because I love yoga. So solutions journalism is like a practice. The more you practice, and remember it manifests every time you make a decision to look at the other side, to flip the script and focus on a solution rather than a problem. That is solutions journalism. That's what it's all about. It's about choosing hope. And this is a slide this is a page from Source Media Properties in Ohio. I'll speak a little bit about that later as well. Okay, so you've got this is a story about lead poisoning in Rochester, in Cleveland, and how through really clever reporting by Cleveland Plain Dealers journalists, they were able to uncover how other cities were successfully dealing with the lead poisoning challenges in Rochester. So, again, solutions journalism is evidence-based reporting. It is also often called accountability journalism. When you investigate and report on solutions to a social problem, you take away the excuses from the policymakers, the politicians, and others in power for not solving the problem. So this is an excellent example. It's used in most of the trainings, but embarrassing authorities into accountability. And in this case, that's exactly what the journalists were able to do. So for many years, Cleveland had experienced this lead problem in these homes that were like our kind of RDP homes. They were government or county provided houses, and very often it was low income residents on these properties. And for years, I think it was about 6 years, that they had reported, these journalists and Cleveland Plain Deal had reported on this problem. And out of sheer frustration and the apparent or very obvious attitude by the authorities, they decided to adopt a solutions journalism approach and write about what could be done. So they looked to a city that had the same kind of problem and what they did to address it. So it's more or less a how done it kind of solutions piece. So this very clearly indicates watchdog role, where you're talking about the contamination and how it's going unabated. So it's loud, it's shouting, it's complaining, it is problem centered. The shift to decide to look at who was doing what, you adopted a dog role. So how other cities were employing effective lead strategies and at what point in the process, some of it. And then they went through a whole lot of cities with similar parallels. So they went to Rochester, New York, for example, a similar city with a lot of parallels to look at. Rochester stood out by being proactive and stepping up inspections of high risk areas. They were able to reduce the number of children testing high for lead over a 10-year period. This was a preventative model that worked really well for them. So the journalists looked at the different measures, and you can see on the guide dog roll, they put in some of those, the different measures, and they matched each city against that. So you'll find that you're looking at inspections of homes. Successful cities inspected those before children were poisoned. Cleveland, after children were poisoned. So they were using children as lead detectors, really. And it was already too late at the time. The damage was done. So if you're not familiar with it, lead poisoning affects brain development, your moods, especially with women and children, and affects fetus development and with pregnant women. And yeah, so Rochester did very well over a 10-year period. We're able to reduce, and work effectively. Yeah, this slide clearly indicates how this worked, but the impact of the story. This is what happened when the story was published. The excuses had to be taken away. Cleveland had to act. So you find that Cleveland's health department, and you've got that list there. 3 or 4 deputy commissioners fired or resigned. City-led inspection staff, they increased their staff capacity. They passed plans that and policy that proactively inspects rental homes. And so it is. That's accountability, and that's the impact of solutions journalism. So this report shows that change is possible, and you can do it where you live, for the publications you're running, or for the publication whoever you're working for, your publishing house. How to do solutions journalism? I've told you about what solutions journalism is and why it's important. Now let's talk about how to do it. Important question. What is missing from the conversation? Is there an awareness of the problem? If there isn't, then you need to perhaps look at exposing the problem. And when you expose the problem enough, like Cleveland Plain Dealer did, then people are going to come to you and say, but hey, listen, we're trying to fix this. And that creates an awareness of potential responses. Is there awareness of potential responses? You need to look for that. If is there an awareness? Is there sufficient outrage? If so, then traditional journalism will expose the problem. But if missing parts of the conversation include what could be done about this, who is doing a better job of handling the problem, then it's a good candidate for a solutions journalism inquiry. Is the problem well known? But solutions journalism is about widely shared systemic issues and how community-led solutions are at play. So somewhere, somebody is trying to fix this. Somebody's getting together, groups and communities, and some will be more successful than others. So this is what you need to look out for. Choose problems that resonate within your communities, within your town, for your readership. Okay, things that you're familiar with. So it becomes easier to report on, easier to be able to access resources and that. Seek a positive difference. So if you have 6 ECD creches, informal, formal, look at who's doing a better job in terms of addressing, the early readiness of the little ones for grade 1, for example. Who's doing a better job? That stands out as a positive deviant. So you'll find that if it's not working, then you need to find out what the circumstances are. Here's a grid that you could possibly use. Just to note down response. It's a map, evidence, limitations, and then you'll be able to see, okay, is this a good solution story? How is that working? And you use it to do your comparisons as well. It can help you prepare. And also, if you're pitching for an editor or you're doing freelance work, then you can use that. Very important is to be able to take a small slice of the story. If you looked at COVID, for example, there were so many things happening with responders, first responders, hospital issues, beds, and not enough, resources at clinics. People were being isolated, food shortages. There were so many aspects, but always take a small slice because a small slice is reflective of the biggest, of the bigger, right? So in the same way, you would not be. There's a small slice. Okay, so in the way you wouldn't eat an entire pizza in one go, it's exactly the same way. You're going to take a slice of a pie or a pizza, and you can thoroughly cover that topic in that subset or subgroup. Okay, so I put this image here so it's perhaps will help stay in your mind as to why we need to take small pieces and for effective reporting. So you do justice when you're taking one part and working with that. Always remember that for impact, and I said qualitative, you've got people, stories about what the characters are doing. It shows them trying to solve the problem. And it looks at the implementation, it looks at the responses. How is that working? Why is it not working? It shows what also makes it stand out from the others. Okay. And it highlights characters in a story, can also highlight what can be learned from a particular response that's at play. Like if I talk about preventative measures being applied with regards to malaria in a particular community and how they did that. What was the impact? What was the results of that? That learning comes from talking to your characters in your story. So these are just some of the questions. What parts of the problem are being addressed by the response? View all the evidence through the lens of the 4 pillars. Reporting on limitations is equally essential, and I keep saying this. No response is perfect, and what may work for one community may not work for another one. So there is no silver bullet. That's exactly what a silver bullet means. There's no perfect solution. There's no perfect response. There's no perfect problem solver with a response. It works differently in different contexts. So I wanted to talk about a very exciting project that my company is called Zeno Projects. So with Orange Farm News and Walkerville Savannah City Times and Globe Post, which is in the deep south of Joburg. Okay, and if I don't know if you know, maybe Grasmere the tolls, Grasmere tolls. that's the region of Johannesburg that I run my publications. So we were so it's called Zeno Projects, and we were very excited, including student living. We're invited to be part of a project with Richland Source. In 2023, Chris and myself were part of a group of publishers that went into the US in Ohio, and we were part of that process of the 3.5 weeks that we were there. We were stationed at Richland Source or Source Media Properties newsroom, and that's where I learned about solutions journalism, and that followed the training and so on. But we were fortunate to be invited to be part of the Solutions Journalism Project. We just submitted last week the stories, and the theme was "It Takes a Village." So investigating these childcare gaps and the impact it was having on families and business and education and the region's future. So really, really exciting project, and a huge thank you to Brittany Skock for her initial trainings and that, which brought us up to this point. I'm going to talk to you about this. So I submitted on my end as Zeno, I submitted 4 stories. But the one that I'm going to talk to you about now is how a faith-based preschool in Lenasia South offers a model for safer, younger, early childcare. Okay, I need the story. So it takes a village, and I changed it to childcare in Joburg South, affecting family businesses and our region's future. So I used the 4 pillars. So before we even started the story, so this is a practical approach if you want to do something similar. Okay, so we started off with posting to Facebook and our social media sites. We asked what preschool or creche that parents out there favored in our area between Lenasia South, Innerdale, Orange Farm, Phumla-Mkhashi, Lenasia South, right? And so we chose the one, and I said positive deviant. There was a lot of feedback coming in from the readers on Facebook and the social media sites to Wasalam preschool, nursery and preschool. Okay. And we then decided, I made a choice. I said, okay, fine. This is, they're standing out. They're doing amazing things. And then we used the 4 pillars. So the problem, you write down the problem, the response, the evidence, and the insights and the lessons for others, the basis of solutions journalism. So we looked at what the problem was, what gave birth to the response. That's where you start when you're writing. And we found, for example, that there were at that time in the early 1990s, it was because of apartheid. Lenasia South was very new, and we didn't have enough facilities, not enough schools, and a lot of women or people that opened up creches and preschools were using their backyards and garages, where you park your car. And you'll find this across the townships even now. And we are a township here in Lenasia South as well. So we looked at, so that was the case. It was unsafe, it was unregulated. You had educators were not trained. Okay, the facilities were not, you didn't have police toilets. There was no proper administration run, no training, no trained service providers within that particular school or those facilities. And this is why Wasalam Nursery and Preschool stood out in terms as a community-led innovation. It was also started by a couple, but linked to the Lenasia South Muslim Association, which means that it was able to be governed by a higher authority that monitored the progress. And And that's how, goodness, that's how Wasalam Nursery and Preschool started. So again, basic infrastructure was lacking key issues. There were overcrowding, no proper ventilation, hygiene was an issue. Then you've got, in terms of the response, community-led model for quality and safety. That again linked to the Ladyja South Muslim Association, and it was used to fill both an educational and an emotional gap in the community, governed and run by the auspices, within the auspices of this association. And they did this because they found there was a gap. They found there was a gap for a school with an Islamic ethos. Okay. And there was no libraries or health facilities at the time. So according to the board member, he said, we filled this gap. And from the outset, they sought formal registration, which is their response, through the Gauteng Department of Education, ensuring that it met operational standards, and the center the center features age-appropriate ventilated classrooms. These challenges that I mentioned earlier, spacious outdoor play areas and access, child-sized toilets, qualified and supervised teaching staff. Excuse me. Again, impact. So for over 3 decades, Wasalam built a reputation as a positive deviant, thriving where many township-based centers struggled. The CAPS curriculum, or the school's curriculum, blends a CAPS-aligned Grade R program with Islamic teachings, fostering academic readiness and cultural grounding. It is open to learners of all religious backgrounds, maintaining an inclusive environment. And admin systems are also, again, evidence of impact. Sound admin systems, attendance registers, pay slips, leave forms, incident reports, quarterly term plans, regular teacher supervision. These are all meticulously maintained. And the story that I wrote goes into detail with this. So what I'm giving here is simply an outline. It's the skeleton of the story that we fleshed out. I think it was I wrote it was 1,100 words, I think. So parents, and also when feedback from the parents, where they report high satisfaction, both the quality and the safety of education as key reasons for choosing Wasalam as their local option. Okay, so remember what I said about insights and lessons for others, which is critical for learning, and how your story and your models that you've chosen to talk about can be replicated anywhere else in the world. So Wasalam's success shows that grassroots leadership, when combined with formal compliance, can significantly reduce early childhood care or improve early childhood care in underserved communities. Region G and my side of Joburg, and for the rest of the stories that we've done, were all done within Region G. These are all townships, and these are underserved, all underserved communities. So by doing this, what the approach does in terms of the school, this approach it demonstrates that registration with education authorities is achievable for township-based ECDs with committed leadership, blending cultural or faith-based values with formal curriculum, will enhance engagement and learning outcomes. Transparency in management builds trust with parents and the wider community, offering enrichment programs within tuition fees, which provides families with added value. So the principal said, we wanted to do more than just provide a place to leave children. We wanted to nurture them, to educate them and keep them safe. Okay. So I wanted to, for some reason, I can't see my chat on my screen. How can I get help with this? One moment. This is... You kill it. We're just trying to fix that so I can see the chat. think, okay, well, while we're waiting to fix that, so here's an example of how you could do a solution story in 500 words. You're looking at the response, the summary, that led to the response. You're going to break that down. Okay, what caused the problem? There has to be a problem for there to be somebody somewhere trying to come up with a promising way to fix that problem. Then you've got evidence. Again, part of the 4 pillars. Okay, one moment. I've got my right-hand man, Otis, here. He's going to try and I just need to share, but we also, I can't see the chats. Oh, there you go. How can I bring that down? Okay, let's start. And I want to get the chats because I want you guys to engage with me. I want to see if there am I missing something?
Actually, I'm not sure if this will be helpful, but so far there's nothing in the chat.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Guys, don't you have any questions for me? I feel like I'm talking at you. You're not talking. Anyway,
Can I break the ice, Mary?
sure.
Am I audible?
Yeah, you are. Thanks.
Okay, no problem. Thank you very much for the presentation. Sorry for joining in late. I think for now I just have like 2 questions in regards to the practicality of applying for solutions journalism in one's more journalistic integrate, right? So how do you decide if a story is suitable for solutions journalism approach? And then the big question that follows to that one is how do you balance reporting on solutions without appearing to promote them?
Okay, first one. Sorry, V, are you done?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Jumping in there. Okay, for it to be a solution story, it has to be a response to a widely shared problem. Okay. And you're going to take if there is a creative response, if the response is having impact, you're going to look at that and then you're going to break it down and you're going to use the 4 pillars of solutions journalism, which is which is um, it has to be, first of all, it's got to be a response. Secondly, it's got to be the response has got to show what's working and what's not working. You're also going to be showing the second pillar is evidence. Solutions journalism is evidence-based reporting. Is there evidence of this response unfolding? It's got to be something that's happening now. Also, that there's got to be lessons or insights learned from that could be replicated by a community somewhere else. Okay. And fourthly, is that you have to talk about the limitations. A good journalist will be very honest with their readers or audience that this is what's missing from that, what's missing from there. This is how something can be improved. Or be mindful if you're applying this particular model in your context. You got to be mindful that this may not work, perhaps because you're on the coast and something is happening in Asia South inland or whatever that may be. So that's how you would know that it is a worthy solutions piece that it's worthy of the investment of time that you're going to be putting into that, because remember it involves interviews, and it's balanced by the interviews, it's balanced by data. Okay. And it's got to be, again, a response to a widely shared problem. It's not a feel-good piece, it's not a puff piece, but somebody saving somebody on a cat's been stuck in a tree, and somebody, this amazing youngster saves the cat from possible death. That's not a solution story, but it's worthy of a story, but not in a solutions context. Nobody can learn from there. What's, that kind of thing. What was your second question, V?
So my second question is, how do you balance reporting on solutions without appearing to promote them?
You've got to be, when you start using the four pillars again, you got to be very mindful when you're talking up, when you talk, when you're talking, when you're reporting on what the implementers or the beneficiaries of that project are doing, or in their wording. When you're talking about it, you cannot be promoting it. You can't make it a hero worship story. That's the difference. You can't just, when you're just talking about this person, always it's you got to have balance. And this is where the four pillars come in, because you're talking about limitations. Remember that if you're gonna, it's no hero worship. You can't be singing the praises of the implementers. No, you're going to be very factual. This is investigative journalism, but using the four pillars. It is constructive, yes, but it's also, that's the four pillars that make it stand out, this approach, in the approach, it makes it stand out. So you got to be guarded against making a model of a solution sound like a silver bullet, and it's going to solve all their problems. That this person or people that are these two guys that are putting this project together or leading the project on behalf of their street committee or whatever are not seen as the next best thing to slice bread, for example. So you got to be objective in that. Your job is to allow the reader to decide, to make a decision about what's going to work for them or what's not going to work for them, with respect for their project.
Yeah.
Does that help?
It definitely does. And then if I'm holding all the questions, please do tell me. I think I just want to follow up on what you just said now. So how does one navigate in regards to having limited data or evidence for that particular solution? How does one go about it?
You can back it up with qualitative. You can also, qualitative are the interviews with authorities, with the implementers, with the people who are benefiting from that solution. But you can also you can say there isn't enough data at this point, but you will get back to your readers at a later stage when more data is available, because both data and your quotations, for example, in the story, are giving the reader a lot of information, even if it's limited data.
Okay.
Somewhere in the world, somebody has quite likely addressed that social issue, and there may be data from another place that doesn't have to be in South Africa or in Johannesburg or in Cape Town. It could be in Australia or Finland or wherever. That data, somebody has addressed this, whatever you're trying to investigate.
Doc. Doc. Makes
Okay,
sense. Yeah.
are we good?
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. No problem. So I wanted to take you through a quick way to I showed I think you have the slide on screen. Can you see my current slide? A solution story in 500 words? You can. Good.
Yes, we
Okay.
can.
So here's a guide as to how you can put a story together quickly in 500 words. Okay. The response, the summary of the problems that led to the response. What was the problem? Then evidence, your data, okay, your quotes, your insights, also, and evidence from your there, and you've got the limitations and more evidence and results, and then you've got um, look at who's doing what elsewhere as well. Bring that in, and yeah, so that's a quick way of putting together a Let me just go down. I'm trying to get my next slide. Oh my goodness. Sorry, I've got a very sensitive laptop. Okay. There you go. Now, if you're in TV and radio, you're doing a lot of us are publishers, and everybody's doing a lot of video right now. So here's very quick. You can screen grab this, or even the other one. Or I can send. I'm happy to share the slides. Doing a TV or video story in 2 minutes. It's a quick breakdown. Person's story. What was the problem? Soundbite. Describe the problem. What's the solution? Give me some evidence. All done. Very quick. Just follow the 4 pillars, and it's not difficult to do, and it's a quick grab. Because remember that I find that we have so much stuff being thrown at us on a daily basis. People don't have much time. And especially the younger generation, they want quick hits. Want to know quickly what's happened, why, what, well, where to from here. So you just use that. So this is about visuals and solutions journalism. This is about your pictures. Visuals matter. Very, very important. Your visuals must speak as you would normally do in your newsroom as a journalist, even if you're studying here. Let your pictures speak to your headline, to the context of the story. Okay. So here is a story about youth volunteers. The headline says it all. Okay. And that's quite evident. And then you've got on the other side, you've got this, there's a big solar plant close to this village. You see this man, he's putting out his solar panels, and they've completely ignored these villages on the side around the solar plant, and they're not helping them. So this community came up with their own thing. They managed to buy these solar panels, and they're using it. So it's a mini version of what the solar plant is doing, but they're doing it for themselves. They've come up with that solution. So certain times of the day, they're able to put their stuff out, have their phones charged using that. So that's a solutions piece. Even in a picture with a caption, you can actually have a solutions piece on that. And remember that always that your audiences remember the pictures more than the story. That's generally the case. And you need to pay. That's why it's so important to pay attention to your visuals. What are you trying to communicate in your story? Your story aligns, those keywords that align with your pictures. It's very important. Remember that use the story, align with the solutions focus, and not work against the story. Okay, there's also a thing about preventing your bias, your standing as a photographer or the journalist, that you're not imposing your your sense of maybe superiority or power play over what you perceive to be a victim. Remember, somebody is coming up who is working on his solutions. They are empowered individuals. They moved from victimhood to being the heroes of that story. So you need to give them that respect when you're taking those pictures. Let it clearly speak to your audience when you're reporting. Do not reinforce the problem of victimhood. And give them the sense of agency. They have come up with this. They're addressing problems. And if you have a main character or 2 people that you're speaking to, maybe let there be a picture of them, because they're mentioned in the story. They're the movers and shakers. They should be given the respect they deserve. So it's also nice to plan your pictures ahead. I did this with the series I did for Source Media Properties then. I planned my pictures. I thought about what I want to do. I made a checklist. This is the kind of picture I want to take. This is a visual. Here, this is where I want to stand against the background of a creche or an ECD. I did all of that beforehand, right? And sequence your pictures. For those of you who are seasoned, I'm looking at some seasoned publishers in the room, so you know. But for those who are new, do this. Remember that the impact of your images and and the flow. The story flows, the pictures flow as well. So you can benefit from using this checklist. Okay, so very important is are the SJN resources, Solutions Journalism Network resources that you can go and you can further any information you may need. It adds, there's additional information there that I may not have spoken about now. So one of those things is a Solutions Journalism Tracker. It's a curated collection of, or a database of stories from all over the world, right? There are more than 70 figures, a little bit outdated. I think there's 17,100 stories produced at the moment by about 9,800 journalists. And the thing is, it's not just American or British. There are Dutch and there's Swahili, and a lot of the stories from East Africa are on the tracker. So you can go there and have a look and see what they're doing. If you have an idea for solutions, a story within your area, okay. You can search via topic. You can search via a platform, length, outlet, journalist name, and much more. Okay. So the Learning Lab. This is also goes through what I've been telling you, but how do I know it's solutions? Exactly, Valen, to your question earlier. How do it's not solutions? Remember, I took you through those slides, what it's not. It's not puff piece, it's not theory, it's something that's in place already. But all of that is on the Learning Lab. Okay, we have any questions while I try and fix my... Chris, do I have a little bit of time so I can show my video? No?
You do have time. You do have time. Did you manage
Okay.
to figure it out?
I'm going to get to Otis now to help.
Okay.
Are
All
there
right.
any questions while I'm here, while we're waiting? Please go, Otis. Anyone? Anything you'd like me to go over again? Just pop it in the chat, and then we can address that. Okay. Okay, let's start with this.
Hi, I'm Langelisha.
Sorry, I'm about to ask a question.
No, there's no question because is it possible that you can send the presentation to our emails?
No worries at all. I think you, drop it into the chat and then I can get it off the chat at a later stage.
In the chat, I just send them a website address.
No problem at all.
Yes. Because I was having a network problem. That's why I joined you.
Yeah, no worries at all. I'm happy to chat with you again. I'm hoping to have a series of workshops that that we can go through. I'd love to have a face-to-face. I think that would be great if we could have something in Joburg. Let's see how we can do that. But definitely lots of I want to be able to share. Sorry, the video. It's on. Okay.
It takes time.
Right. I'm going to start the video. I think we managed to fix it.
Okay, maybe face to face when you think it might be. When? Still there.
I'm still here. Sorry, I'd love to do a face-to-face. It would depend on, hopefully, maybe AIP can come up with budget, but I know that's all tight. But we have not had a workshop in Gauteng, so let's see how we can do this.
Yes, because there are so many things that we have to learn on you. Because I myself, I know I've got the stories that I have done. I've got so many things.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I think what I've found is that many of us are kind of doing these stories, but we just be able to include like limitations. We're all doing such amazing work. And it's just about, just adopting or applying the four pillars. When you look at it in terms of the four pillars, it starts around that. So remember, a story is not complete unless it has all four pillars in it. But feel free to email me and I'll get it out on the air. I'll speak to AIP and see what we can do in terms of a Gauteng session in-house.
As I
And
was
then
trying to say that I did hear you talking about the headline and the content. The headline, according to myself, it's supposed to be short and punchy. And then the first paragraph should relate to the headline. Because what I know about the headline is it must be short and punchy.
yeah.
Short and punchy, buy me, something like that. If you see the headline, you have to go maybe buy that brand. See,
Yeah.
it's according to the Medallion ethics and the Medallion limitations. I had a little bit of those.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I also I've learned to do headlines, short and sweet, 3 or 4 words for front pages for print. But lots of things are changing, and now we often use in different formats, and it calls for more copy sometimes.
Yes.
There you go. Exactly. Let's use that video.
Yeah, it's fine with me.
Okay, cool.
Okay,
But
cool.
that's the idea of these workshops, be able to learn together and see how we can, have
But solutions journalism.
Okay. I need you guys to see this because it covers everything it's a concise way to look at exactly what solutions journalism is in. We're struggling a bit with the audio.
Yes, it was a problem with an audio as well. That's why I'm saying, hey, maybe I didn't catch up so many things, but let me just send my email address so that maybe if I didn't see anything or the part of the presentation, it might be sent via my email. I'm trying to write.
Afternoon, morning, how are you? I'm playing the video now. Can you inform me if you can hear the sound from your end?
Okay, will do. There's no sound.
So sure. Even now.
Even now, there's no audio at all.
Or can I share the link to the chat? Then you can
Yes,
have a look at
please.
it.
Let's try. Yeah, please do. That will be great. Let's see if we can.
Neo, my apologies. I went
No
way over
worries.
time.
No. I know you are. I know you are. When it comes to these videos, sometimes you're not the only one. Every now and then, they just don't play properly. Okay, let's just see.
David Bornstein is the co-founder.
The link is there now.
Yeah, I've got it. I just want to open it up.
Okay.
Right, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to start sharing from my side then.
Very cool. Let's copy some of that.
Are you able to see?
Okay, it's the stages. Yeah, okay.
Is that the one?
Yep.
Then I'm going to test now the sound.
Thanks, Neil.
Solutions Journalism Network, an an organization that works with
Oh,
news
yeah.
organizations to produce rigorous reporting on responses to social problems. The goal, to rebalance the news in a way that provides people a sense of investment and to provide communities with the information they need to participate in a healthy democracy. Tonight, he gives his brief but spectacular take on telling the whole story.
I mean, I like to think about news just as a feedback system. You know, a good feedback system to work needs to let you know what you need to be afraid of, what you need to be aware of, and you need to know what you can do about it. You need to know where the efficacy is. If you only do one without the other, you're going to cause people to bury their heads in the sand. And if you only do the other thing, then you're a sort of a Pollyanna, and you're making people feel good, but you're not really giving them information that's true to reality. But in balance, you can activate people. And I think journalism at its best should activate people to be powerful players in a participatory democracy. There's just a great sense of well-being that comes from that way of living. And I think that journalism or any media should help build that capacity, should help feed it. It doesn't take away from, letting us know about wars and corruption and malfeasance and what we're seeing, obviously in politics around the world with populism. But at the same time, if we make that the only focus of our attention, we will be leaving the best of human nature on the table, basically. The main way that the news harms democracy is by providing a view of the world that is largely deficit framed. I mean, we are amply informed about what's going wrong, about what's ugly, about what's corrupt. But because we don't have a similar amount of information about what's growing, what are the new possibilities emerging, we have a very flawed kind of one-sided view. It's as if your parents were only ever criticizing what you did and never letting you know where you had possibilities to grow. Many people who would love to participate in contributing to a better community, even a better society or world, have an impoverished sense of their power to do so. Particularly when it comes to communities that have experienced poverty historically, or communities of color in the United States especially, you have narratives that have been deficit framed for as long as we've had journalism. You could look at major news organizations across the United States. You look at the Metro Daily, the large newspaper in that community, and you take a community of color and you type in the search, and you'll find in many cases that the majority of stories are about violence, as if to say that is the majority of activity in that community. Now, I'm not denying that we should cover violence. The point is, it's not the only truth. We should tell the whole story. And if we don't tell the whole story about communities, we are creating bias in the minds of people who often have power over those communities. What I see, just because I'm a sort of the spider at the center of this web of solutions journalism, is my head is filled with stories of solutions all the time, which really inoculates you against some of the bad stuff that's been coming our way in recent years. Catch the world doing the right thing and let that also spread. My name is David Bornstein, and this is my brief but spectacular take on telling the whole story.
A lot to think about there, and you can watch more brief but spectacular videos online at pbs.org/newshour/brief.
So we finally got to the film. Thank you, everyone, for the opportunity to speak to you about solutions journalism. If you have any other queries, please go on to the site, Solutions Journalism Network, and you can learn far more. I hope to have other workshops soon, funding permitting, so that we can share the spread of this amazing practice that really speaks to the hearts of communities and speaks to us as a country that needs to be healing. We need to share all of these stories, and the shift to move from conflict to to being a more positive news entrepreneur. So thank you again for all your time. I have launched a Solutions Journalism Institute Southern Africa, a nonprofit, and I would like journalists to get on board with that, to be become members of it. so that we're able to share the training, share the learnings, and spread the practice. All right. Thank you so much, Neil, Chris, for the gracious welcome. Thank you so much.
Right. Thank you so much, Shirley, for a powerful session there. We are definitely going to have more of those. I think 1 hour is not enough. So we'll arrange for those just in the future because I think our journalists are hungry for that type of reporting. I know I am. I want to hear more of those news. All right. Thank you so much, Shirley. All right. So moving on now, we're going to our next speaker. This is Christopher Mcinga. He is a South African media advisor, which is driving SANEF's community media digitization drive that was helping local publishers to shift to digital. So he founded Community Media Support Services, which is co-founded by Mediate Media and which publishes Student Living as well. So he was selected for the AIP and USA study tour to develop sustainable growth strategies and partnerships for community media. Welcome, Christopher.
Thank you so much, Newa. Much appreciated. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, we are audible.
Fantastic. So I'm going to go straight into it because I'm mindful of time. And my session literally is going to be 30 minutes, if not less, because I'd like to also allow you to kind of ask questions and tell me exactly whether or not you would go into the space. I have set up the presentation. I'm not sure if it is actually showing, if you can just confirm.
To me, it is showing.
Okay. Fantastic. Super. Again, my name is Christopher Mcinga. I'm from Mediate Media, and I also work for Student Living. So it's exciting that we have all the publishers here, and I can see quite a lot of names that I'm familiar with and we've been engaging with as well. So this session is really about AI, podcasts, for newsrooms. So this is a very shiny space right now. A lot of people are jumping on the bandwagon of these two things, AI and podcasts. Those, because I'm sure most of these things we are already thinking about how we can best use them because the audience is migrating from print, the audience is consuming a lot of data and information on their cell phones, and also the audience is becoming lazy to read. So how can we actually look at these two things, AI and podcast, and how we can use it for newsrooms? So what we're going to cover today is pretty much AI for newsrooms and what is AI and how use it effectively, all right? Which is very important. And also podcast, we're going to look at the podcast race, what our perceptions are of podcasts and the type of podcasts that are available out there. And then we will also look at whether or not you should be going in that direction, because I think a lot of people actually want to get into that direction. And we're going to look at the way forward, which is just a conversation with you about these things. So I simply put is artificial intelligence. It's been around for many years, even decades. We only know of it now because it is available on our computers, it's available on our cell phones. But we only know AI from a GPT perspective, right? Because AI has been used in medicine, in architecture, in technology for many years. But it's only now that they're getting into this whole GPT part, which is called the generative pre-trained transformer. That's what GPT stands for. And if you look at and break that word down, which is generative, which means it will generate something for you based on a pre-trained, meaning information that has been learned from this large language model. Someone has trained these tools, and transformer obviously being itself and how it can also learn by itself using various sources. So pretty much here's what it's all about. GPT is generative pre-trained transformer. How you can best remember this is as a child, right? You learn the language by hearing people speak to you. Then you adopt those words and you start stringing them up as a language, all right? And then furthermore, you get to learn how to read. When you start learning how to read, what happens there is you start consuming information from various sources and starting to create an understanding of whatever topic it is. Once you go to high school, you then be taught how to be a critical thinker, all right, of certain topics and how to best regurgitate that information that you've learned, meaning how you can present that information that you've learned in an exam, showing your understanding of the topic. Once you reach university, that's when they start looking at not just critical thinking, but also you yourself doing research and understanding the subject choice, but from a bit more advanced level. And that in itself gives you a degree. And then when you get the degree, you get a job, and you can implement whatever you have learned throughout the system. So now, if you look at it from that point of view, that is exactly what is happening with the GPTs. Fed information, and they start advancing because now they understand and they can draw from other queries, other results. When you put the thumbs up on ChatGPT to say, thank you, this is great, it means it will take that information and use it as true as this is something that you yourself, like as a style, etc. And then it starts advancing itself. It also graduates from a university level, meaning that it also draws research information that is out there from websites so that it can actually become a bigger language model. So that is how it works. And I hope with a thumbs up on your screens, show me that you understand how this works, and I will share with you the dangers behind these GPTs. So if you're using ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude or Muse, Notebook LM, please give a thumbs up. If you are using Meta or on your phone already, please give a thumbs up. So now, here's the dangers of these GPTs, right? The dangers of these GPTs, what they do, they tend to also hallucinate, all right? And they also tend to have biases. Now, what is hallucination? Hallucination is a ChatGPT or a Claude or GPT that you're using, assuming that it knows better than you, assuming that information that it's grabbed something else is 100% correct, but it might not be. All right, which is why it's important as newsrooms, if you're using these tools, make sure that you verify the information, make sure that you double check what they're actually saying. Now, it can also input biases. Biases meaning that it will then look at the things that it's been taught, okay, just like the child, then assume certain things as being factual. But it doesn't, it puts in its values, which is grabbed somewhere else and puts it in. So as an example, let's say you're writing an article about water shortage in the African continent due to, let's say, global warming. Then you've written the article and you put it into ChatGPT and you ask it to say, can you help me expand on this article and also put it in a certain style? Okay. Then all of a sudden you start reading this article that ChatGPT has written now. It's saying in a corrupt continent of Africa facing a water shortage due to, let's say, global warming. Ask yourself the question, where did you get corrupt from? And what does it have to do with water shortage due to global warming? It's a bias. It's already assuming that the African continent is corrupt. So if you're not looking at these things from that perspective, you will tend to then start being influenced by these tools. I want to talk about Grok, Grok, the AI tool by Elon Musk, because it's displayed in the past couple of months how bad it is, because it had a certain perception and a bias, and it says that South Africa has got genocide, which is unfounded. So those are the kind of biases that you need to be mindful of when you're using these tools. So let's move on. How do you best use this ethically? My kind of take on this, especially when we're dealing with student living, is the rule of thumb is to understand the Press Council press code. If you understand that and you work within those parameters and the guardrails that have been put into place, you should not go wrong. Use AI tools as tools and not as a replacement of you. So the first step is the first draft of your article must be yours. The information is yours. You are the one that interviewed. You are the one that found the news. You are the one that interrogated the interviewee. You are the one that needs to give the GPT the first draft. All right? And use the GPTs as assistants, as interns, meaning grab a link from, let's say, Stats SA, And you say, with this article that I've given you, can you draw some relevant information from Stats SA? Then it will take some stats and put it in perspective. Because you don't have time now to go to Stats SA's website and start scrolling through data and information, etc. You don't have that time, right? But it can do that for you. It's your intern, it's your assistant. All right. And be a good manager. Ask it questions and also prompt it. So, for example, you've put in this article that is a first draft, then you say, where in this article can I actually improve? And read answers it gives you, because those answers will also help you then go and find the second comment or find another source, or maybe it might have been something that you've neglected to look at from a different perspective. Ask it those questions. And second step, what you need to do is you need to, it helps you do the things that you would hire a proofreader or a sub-editor to do. For example, fixing silly mistakes, all right? Your spelling, your grammar, especially if you're not a first language English speaker, it helps you to make sure that when your English is not Englishing, it helps you bring it back, right? And also it helps you with sentence construction, which is very important, especially when you've got a specific way of writing. Now that brings us to the last point, which is improve your styles and also learn from it. You can feed it your editorial style, how you write, how you phrase things. If you are leaving out Mr., for example, in an article, which is a standard thing, and just using a person's first name and surname, and then later on you're referring to the person by their surname, then you know that this is a style that you would like. And what I like to do as well, if there's a specific style, let's say, for example, from a Daily Maverick article, Daily Maverick article link in there and say, using this style, can you see where I can improve this article? And then it will then give you a revised article. Don't take that article as being the final article, because you need to put your final touches to it, right? But then you can then say, can you compare my style with the Daily Maverick style? It will give you where the areas are. It's where now you start to learn, improve. So it's important to be mindful that don't just use these tools to write articles for you, to write proposals for you. You need to use them as tools. So you start your article writing on the GPT, it means that you are actually working yourself out of a job. Okay? Simply put, if the editor understands that this is what you're doing, you might as well not even have a job. All right? So be mindful of that. Now, that is it about the GPTs and AI. I can tell you quite a lot more. There's Claude, which is really good at condensing complex documents, either from the municipality, time that you don't have to read through statements or budget speeches. You can put those budget speeches into the GPTs and say, GPT, can you please analyze this year's budget speech? And it will help you to identify the key things. You can even put inside there, say, hi, thank you so much for analyzing this document. Can you just give me an angle from, let's say, specific municipality and the community in how this budget would actually affect them? Then now it's giving you ideas. Then you start your first draft. When you finish with your first draft, put it in Claude again and say, using a certain style, can you please improve this article? There's another one called Notebook LM, which is great because Notebook LM will take an article that you've written and it will actually summarize certain things and say, you might be lacking here, you might be lacking there. And also on Notebook LM, you are able to also generate an audio, which is almost like a podcast. It allows your finished article to kind of be spoken about from a commentary point of view. So you've got the woman's voice, you've got the man's voice, then they're discussing your article. That allows you as a journalist to sit down and say, well, this article that I've written, actually, if it's read by Notebook LM and this is the commentary they're giving me back, it means that I've missed the point. Okay, so now they're using it to kind of assess your article as well. There's also Gemini, which is by Google, which is also awesome. I think they're evolving in this space. And also there's obviously ChatGPT and the GPTs that you're using on your cell phone like Meta as well. The other AI tools that you are using or can use, from an image generating point of view, if you don't have your stock images, you can use AI tools to generate illustrations, because don't, for my use of AI, I don't like to see faces of people because I know that those faces have been developed using other faces of other people. All right. So in Kenya, for example, there's a massive documentary that you can look up on YouTube about the exploitation of these AI companies on countries like Kenya, whereby they would ask a group of people to submit images so that their AI tools can start learning how an African face looks like and how a woman's face looks like. So for me, I'm very skeptical about using those kind of image generation. So I ask it to do an illustration, something that is drawn, something that is designed to best represent the article. So let's move on to the next shiny thing, which is podcast. And the way I'm going to put podcast, I can see Valence hand up there. Valence, you can jump in, then I'll move on to podcast.
Oh, thank you very much, Chris. I'm not sure. Can we take question now, or maybe should it be later?
Let's go ahead.
Okay,
Let's
no
go
problem.
for it.
Thank you very much, Chris. So yeah, I think I have, well, it's a couple of questions, but I just want to start with the most important ones. And then the first one is, what's the best way to check for bias or misinformation in AI outputs? And I think with this one, we discussed it, but then for the sake of this conversation, for those that are hearing it for the first time, should AI tools be credited or disclosed to readers when using or producing their content? Thanks. That's the first two questions. Thanks.
Good questions, Valen. Thank you so much for raising those. So let me start with the second question because I think that one is easier. All right. So you as a newsroom, you need to develop an editorial policy. If you don't have one already, please develop an editorial policy. In your editorial policy, include what your youth AI should be. Okay. And how you are going to do it. For example, here's a framework that I can just give you. Look at it from this point of view. In student living, we use AI to help with grammar check and spelling check, and also at times to help us improve the style of writing so that it can talk better to our audience. Now, that is just a paragraph that I've just put out there. It be just a small thing that you can put into your editorial policy that you can then include on your website. Now, I don't think it's really important. It's really important to be putting under an article that this article was also helped by AI. It's for me, I wouldn't do that, right? Because it's already going to create a question mark. Now, this goes now to where the first question is. So, answer the question is, it's up to you to include it under your article as a credit. But I don't think it is necessary. If you have an editorial policy that showcases your AI use, all right? Because you don't see articles being put out there. I'm going to be very funny here. You don't see articles that have been put up there to say, this like is disclaimer, crediting word spell check. Because word spell check is an AI, right? So for me, if I look at it from that perspective, it will be too messy. It will be an approach of saying, are you then letting the reader question whether or not you wrote the article? But this is now going to the first question of checking if there are biases, checking if there's no disinformation. It goes to the first part, which is the first draft must be yours. Read and reread again. You do your journalism. If you've asked it to draw information from Stats SA, normally these GPTs are now also giving you those click-throughs to show you where they found the information from. So that helps you to solidify the article and make sure that there's no disinformation there or misinformation. But remember, at the end of the day, it's your copy. You are behind the byline. Your newsroom took that information out there. It wasn't ChatGPT, it wasn't Claude. So how to identify biases? If you yourself are not identifying the bias as you, as the reader of the article, and the person that started the article, you have to ask yourself the question, are you a journalist? Okay. And if that gets published on your website and this bias is there, who's your publisher? And are you really a publisher? So it's important to reread what you get from it. Use these GPTs as your assistant, not as your replacement. So that is how to patch these things out and make sure that you verify your information. It's credible, it's coming from a credible source. Because remember, another thing as well is that other articles that are published somewhere else and maybe you're drawing information from, they also might be inaccurate. So it's important that you, as a first draft, you make sure that even that article or even that stat that you're receiving from whatever website is 100% correct. Because at the end of the day, the last say is you pressing the publish button on your website, you sending it to print. You are the one that needs to identify your biases. You are the one needing to verify the information. To you as a newsroom, credit whatever you want to credit, but if it's in your policy, you're 100% covered. Here with a thumbs up. If I've answered your question, please give a thumbs up.
Yes, we are good. Or maybe I should just wait. Should I ask the last one? I'm just gonna pick. Sorry.
Last one. Go for it. Let's talk
Okay,
it.
no,
Go for
thank
it.
you. So, do you think the specific skills that journalists need to have when it comes to using AI tools effectively without over relying on them? And then the biggest one again is, can we train reporters to ask better prompts in regards to AI and then also verifying AI generated information? I think the question is more or less on the prompt side. And then I think I'll just keep quiet and then wait for that presentation. Thanks, Chris.
Fantastic. I think it's asked and answered. I think you asked the question and you answered it yourself. Prompting is very important. Those are the kind of skill sets that you need to train journalists in your newsroom, right? Like for example, if you have a specific document, I think you should develop as a newsroom as to this is how we use AI. We don't use it to write articles for us. We use it to do spell checks. We use it to help extract important information from complex documents. We use it for efficiency. When I went to Richland Source as an example, I'll give you something that's totally off the bar here. They developed an AI tool, an AI assist, to help write sports stories. All right? And in America, they take American football very seriously from a high school level already, okay, and a college level. Not even, I mean, NFL is massive, right? So what does the community newspaper do at Richland Source? What they do, they say, look, we want to free our journalists of time so that they can focus on the real journalism. Will not focus on too much of writing sports stories. So they developed an AI assist that takes results from the actual games that are happening. Let's say, for example, there's 20 games happening. You can't have 20 journalists going to all these 20 games. But what you can do, this AI assist will take the social commentary from those specific games. And then Source, because they've got a portal for school sports where the correct information, like for example, the outcomes of the game, who won, who scored the first goal, etc. So the information is readily available. So the AI assist pulls the sports results, pulls who scored whatever they scored, looks at the social commentary from the Facebook pages, from the chats on the website where the scores are. Then it rewrites those sports stories in the style of the journalist. Now, the style of the journalist, they had to train this GPT, this tool, first to know how, I think it's Larry, I'm not sure, how he used to write. So they had to take articles that he wrote before GPTs were around and chuck it into this tool. And then this tool will learn how Larry actually phrases certain things. So now what has that done? It has actually increased their content production because, hey, there's a lot of stories happening out there that you don't have enough journalists to go cover. Number two, it's actually done it in the style that even a normal person would not realize or recognize. Right? Now, going to the question of prompting, you have to teach your GPTs. You have to precondition them. You have to, if they're using ChatGPT, let that be your tool for specific purpose. And also in the settings of ChatGPT, you can input your style guides there, etc. And then try and use the same kind of prompts that you use. For example, please improve this article's sentence construction. That's something that is, and then have a set of prompts that are preset so that if one journalist leaves you, or if you sell your newspaper, you don't want to have someone who does not know what your editorial policy on AI is. You don't want someone who doesn't understand the prompting and how to prompt it. That's going to safeguard your newsroom from a sustainability point of view. So with a thumbs up, if I've answered your question, please let me know. Let me move on. All right, podcasting, the red race. So I've just put this topic literally as kind of a what, where, when, how, and why kind of perspective. Should you join this wave as a newsroom? Okay, we'll answer the questions just now. And if it's yes, right, why do you actually need it? Why do you actually need to go in that direction? And where should it be? Should it be on Facebook? Should it, I'm sorry, YouTube? Should it be on Iono FM? Should it be on the Apple Podcasts? And how are you actually going to make money from this? How are you going to sustain it, right? So we're going to look at those things. So for us, in general, we see podcast as this, right? So we know MacG's podcast. We know these guys at the bottom left-hand corner there that really messed up this last week. And has really put the podcasting space into scrutiny and about how things should be done from a podcast point of view. So that's how we look at podcasts, right? And then you've got also the newsrooms that have developed podcasts. They've got a reason. They've got a why they did it. For example, you've got Times Live, you've got Sizwe there with SNWX podcast and his niche, his approach, and also you've got the newsrooms. So that's pretty much how we're looking at podcasts from our perspective, okay? Now, yes, fair enough. We are on YouTube. Some of us might not even have a podcast on our phone. Some of us might not even know of how to listen to podcasts using your Apple phone, right? So for now, newsrooms are looking at this. We've been, approached by a number of newsrooms asking us, me myself as a consultant as well, how they can actually develop a podcast. What should they be looking out for? What should they be thinking? So I might just unpack the little nuggets that I've shared with them as well as to what their approaches should be. So let's take a look at this guy, Des. I'm sure you guys might have seen him before. Des from Frey College, Frey Intermedia. He is a podcaster that not many of us know of, right? But I enjoy his podcasts. All right. Des is literally one of the top podcasters in South Africa. He mentioned something with me the other day saying that they went to a podcast awards. And when it got there, it's got the MacG's, it's got all those people that we know of. And then he is as an old man. Sorry, Des, not really old, but mature man, right? Now, he put this out there and it got me thinking that we know podcasts the way we know podcasts because of how it has been commercialized and how we are actually consuming things. So keep that in mind. Now, how Des has got to that level of being in the categories of the MacG's, right, and the Sizwe's, etc. This is his formula based on training that he did last year. Number one, you need to have a commitment. You need to be committed to the cause. Why are you doing it? So even if you're a newsroom and you're committed to the cause of distributing news and credible news, be committed, because that commitment is going to determine your sustainability. Commitment is very important, because what does it do? If you're committed to self-improvement, if you're committed to developing, if you're committed to innovation, to moving where the audience is going, that is the kind of commitment you need as a newsroom. Otherwise, don't start a podcast at all. Consistency. He is consistent with his podcast. He knows his audience needs to receive a podcast at a certain time, and he has been doing it for years. All right? Before we even knew of podcasts, you and I, we've probably been doing podcasts, right? And the consistency as well is making sure it goes hand in hand with the commitment, is that many podcasts actually fail within the first 6 months. Why? Simply because there's no consistency or schedule in place that at this time, I know I'm recording, I'm mastering, and I'm distributing. Whether you're traveling to overseas, whether you're on the road to a conference, whether you're in a bus, you make it happen. If you are doing a voice podcast, go find that room, whether it's a toilet, whether it's a cupboard, go and record, because you're committed and you need to be consistent. Pull one that podcast to come out. The second one is distribution. Like I said, there's YouTube, there's Iono FM, there's podcast. Choose your distribution market or distribution channel based on your market fit, on your audience. If you know that your audience is not on YouTube because it might be too expensive to listen to a 30-minute podcast on YouTube, if the market fit is that you might not have data to listen to your podcast, then don't go and distribute it there. Don't even start, as an example. So the other market fit as well, going aligned with distribution, is the style. So Des does this podcast called History of South Africa, and he's really unpacking the history of South Africa. And I can see he's committed to kind of digitizing history that is out there that we don't know of, going to the depths of the different wars, the different tribes, going to the depths of how the different tribes have moved in South Africa, how the languages have merged. So there's different topics, and that's where I'm going now with style. So with your podcast, you might have in mind an interview kind of situation. But it might not necessarily need to be that. It might be that you need to just do a commentary podcast where you're discussing a specific topic, whether it is a solutions journalism piece that you've been working with as a team, and this is where you are right now with this concept, and you're choosing a distribution channel as being either on your website as a voice note, whether you're distributing it via WhatsApp as well. Think of that as a podcast. Think of that having a brand, a good logo, and you know that your distribution channel is sending it via WhatsApp or via Iono, or whether you want to develop a podcast studio that's going to have costs, and you might have to consider what is the business of the podcast, right? Because you might not receive advertising immediately, like right? You might want to then use your studio that you've set up, you've spent thousands of rands setting up. You might want to create that as its own business as well, allowing other podcasters to come and use your studio, whether it's a church, whether it's a school, and you charge them the rates that you put up up front. You say, for a season, there's X episodes, and you want to record once a month for the next 12 months. This is your package. All right. Now you're starting to claw back the investment that you put into your podcast, because your podcast might not necessarily be a hit. People might say, well, I don't really want to listen to the news podcast because I've got news avoidance. Guess what? The money needs to come from somewhere, and the money is going to come from you renting out that space. All right. Now let's look at the what, when, why, and how. And I'm going to go through this very quick because I've covered it already. As a newsroom, you just have to ask yourself, what is the product? And it must not be it must not be a replica of your newspaper, as an example. So give you an example here. When TV came about, people thought radio would die. All right. But then the internet came about, and then everyone thought, well, TV and radio is going to die, and newspapers are dying now already. So where I'm going with this whole thing is, if you try and approach a podcast like a radio style, it might not be suited for your audience, because now you are replicating things, but from different channels. And you need to find a specific style for that specific product, whether it is your podcast. So if, for example, you are writing a lot of investigative stories and you're a print, and you've got a website, try something different as a podcast. Have it be a panel discussion about a newspaper for that week. That is something that's going to be consistent. That's something that's going to align with your other products. That's something that your advertisers might also jump on board. That is now getting your community as well involved. Maybe it might be the newsroom alone. So look at those angles. I'm giving you some ideas here, really based on the consultations that I've been doing with a number of newsrooms as to how to develop their newsroom, their podcasting business, but in the ecosystem of making it sustainable and not it truly cannibalizing another product. Now, when should you start? Well, you can start immediately, resources allowing. All right, you can use Notebook LM, go and take your articles and convert them into a podcast, two-person conversation, upload that to your website. Boom, there we go. You can even download that, have a thumbnail, chuck it on YouTube. There you have a podcast. Be consistent. Why? Now, you must make sure that it fits a gap. If there's a problem to solve, what is that problem and how are you going to fix that problem? But if there's a gap, for example, in your community, there might not be a podcast that speaks about Lenasia, all right? And the news and happenings of Lenasia, making an example. Now you see there's a gap. But how are you as a newsroom going to fill that gap, all right? Because it's not like Lenasia is going to move. It's going to be there for a while. So you're going to have the consistency. If you're committed to it, it's going to start generating revenue. Now, if you're fixing a problem, what's that problem? Right? People might not read the newspapers. There might be, reader literacy. So you want to convey the news to people in a different way, in a different product. So that's why you want to start it. How? Money from this. Before we go to how, let's go to where to distribute. Yono FM, you've got your YouTube, you've got Apple Podcasts. You can even do WhatsApp as an example. These short little podcasts that you would send out with a little blurb and a thumbnail. So you send it out and be consistent and committed. Now, the last part is how are you going to make money? Well, you can make money through partnerships. You can make money through advertising. But those things really come in and they sometimes go dry. So that's why I say look at the podcast as a business. Like, for example, when we consult with newspapers that want to have a digital platform like a website, it's not just about building a website. It's about saying, look, what is the business behind this website? What's your rate card going to look like? What's your launch going to look like? And how are you going to keep the consistency? How often? What's your cadence of uploading content? What does that look like? Is it sustainable? If it's not sustainable, don't do it. Don't do it at all because they're going to strain you. It's realistic, smart. Is it specific? Is it measurable? Is it tangible? And time bound? And also, are there realistic, smart objectives behind this whole system? My name is Chris, and I'm going to take any questions. But I think if you wish to, get in touch with me to consult about your business, please do contact me. And I thank you so much to Student Living for inviting me and being consistent. For the third year in a row, we're running these news literacy workshops, and I hope my input to your business is going to help your business move forward. Thank you. Are there any questions, Nell?
Thank you, Chris.
All right. Thank you so much, Chris, for the session. We do have a question, just not for you, for Shirley, though. Shirley, if you're still around, there's a question in the chats. It says here, thank you, Shirley, for such an insightful session. I now understand the 4 pillars clearly. My question is, what are some common mistakes journalists make when trying to apply these pillars?
Hi, Neil. Okay, so I think a key mistake that happens is where we make the people we're interviewing, we make them the heroes of the story. The hero of the story is really the response that's being addressed and how that's working or not working. I think that's the biggest mistake people need to look out for. And also that the solutions journalism is about something that's happening now, not a theory, not something that's about to happen or plan. It is something that's happening now, that's unfolding, or may have happened already, and why it didn't work. So what failed responses is also applicable in when you're putting a story together, because it's also a lesson. There's a lesson in that you can. So it's not repeated by someone else, and be aware of the cautions when you're replicating your story. When a reader in another area, it's not a silver bullet. You got to be just guard against that you may be pushing a certain line and making it seem like it is the ultimate model for a particular solution. I think we need to be mindful of that as well. Those are the 3 common mistakes I find. Thanks, Neil.
All right. Thank you so much, Shirley. I hope you were answered there. She's from Orange Farm News. She didn't put down her name, but thank you so much. Are there any other questions? Any questions on AI? Any other questions on solutions journalism? Any questions on podcasts? Yes, Valent.
Thank you very much, Neil. And then thanks to Chris for the presentation. So yeah, I'm not sure how to formulate this question, but it's based on the information that I found, or recently found in terms of AI in a workshop that we're attending at Google. So yeah, this obviously goes to Chris. So what's happening is, right, when it comes to, okay, I'll speak on Notebook LM. What I found out is it doesn't get excited. Okay, let's say you upload a document that has 150 pages, right? And then if someone is interested in doing a podcast, what could happen is they can upload that document and then maybe say create a content-worthy podcast using the very same information. So one of the key things, and I just wanted to check in with you if, Chris, you have verified it, is when I asked, I'm like, look, doesn't Notebook LM get excited? Similar thing with ChatGPT, where just taking information, you just want to give you what you want. Sometimes it's just sourcing incorrect information. So the individual answer that no, it doesn't do that. So here it will only compile the information that you've uploaded in terms of that specific document. And then the other thing is, I just want to just pick your brains here, Chris, is you can upload that, create like a content kind of podcast session. And then the other thing is there's a presentation, or you can just say, for example, create images or everything that I want to upload on my website. Have you ever worked around that, or have you ever seen that? And then, yeah, do you think it's something that's credible? Because I think my follow-up to that is, do you see the future where Notebook LM or any similar tools becoming the backbone of our research, podcast scripting, and all of that into content repurposing? Thanks. Sorry for the long overhaul of the question, but yeah, thanks.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Valent. I was made aware that you've been looking at a screen of a building for all this time, but I will make my presentation available to Neo to distribute to all that are interested. So I'm so sorry about making you look at a screen with the building. So to answer the question, yes. And I'll answer the last question really. It is, yeah, I think it is here. We will be reliant on these tools, whether we like it or not. They will shape the way that we do things. It's inevitable. It's like us using a computer instead of using a notepad, all right, or a pen and a paper. So it's going to be embedded in how we do things in newsrooms, in business, and it's not going anywhere. It's only going to become much better because the more people that are using it, the more it learns, and it's a large language model as well, and especially the actual GPTs themselves learning from each other as well. So it's mind-boggling how this space is going to evolve in the next couple of years. The first question was not really that clear, but yes, definitely, from a scripting point of view, you can use Notebook LM, and I think more so for things like preparation, or for example, you could be using it to help you with the kind of questions you should be asking. And also you can use it as well to kind of help you develop a podcast yourself as well, in terms of generating whatever article or whatever information that you input to go now have it as a voice or as a video to people. So there's those kind of things that you can be using. And I think the likes of Juan work with it a lot, with the AI tools, and also other ones, especially when it comes to image generation. So you can also do things like cloning yourself as a journalist, or rather have AI tools themselves, learn even your language, like how you speak, so that when you're doing, for example, a podcast that you're planning, you can have that podcast being done in your voice, and you are the one that's not doing it, but it's learned how you present and how your voice goes. So yeah, so I hope I've answered your question. I see Juan's hand is up, and also Shirley's hand. Can we take Shirley's hand first and then Juan? And with a thumbs up, Valent, I can see that you're satisfied with the answer. Shirley.
Hi, Chris. Thank you. It was quite an interesting session. Podcasts scare me for some reason, but because I feel like you need a whole lot of stuff to put it together. But I wanted to ask, with our newsrooms, it's like sustainability is always an issue, right? But is there an opportunity, or what opportunities do you see for podcasting in South Africa. Can we use it to be as a sustainability mechanism? Just curious about that.
Yeah, it's a very good question, Shirley, and I think it's product market fit in terms of don't do it because you see everyone doing it. And that's an answer from a sustainability point of view. So if you know your market will not be able to consume your podcast on YouTube, as an example, because of data costs, that's something that you should definitely stay away from. Because you're going to be putting so much effort in developing something and only 2 people will watch it. Now, the other part as well is from a sustainability point of view, whether or not it's something you should pursue. I believe, like, for example, the years that I've spent in the media space, developing some strategies for Caxton. We built about 79 websites in a period of about 2 years when they were moving from print to online. And in that case, it was a gradual migration. So everyone needed to have websites from a print to website. So now, if you look at it from that point of view, where this wave is taking us with podcasts, it's something that you should not look into. You should rather look at how best you can do it with proper product market fit. So if your market is susceptible to voice podcast, then rather do voice podcasts because the input costs are much far less. You can buy your equipment, you've got a laptop, and you've got your journalist on a Thursday at 1 o'clock doing a recording, and you know your distribution channel is this, then stick to that. When things start developing and you've got the consistency after 6 months, you can then innovate and develop and say, Boxer Store, we've got this podcast been running for 6 months, and we know that you don't like to maybe advertise, but perhaps you can buy us cameras as your investment. Now you've got your first investor. All right. The second year, they'll see, well, there's some traction happening here. We've given them cameras, but hey, we also want a banner there. Now you start charging them money. All right. So look at it from that gradual point of view, because not everyone will receive funding from anywhere. So start it like you're starting a business. You're not going to go and buy tons of oranges if you want to start selling oranges on the street corner. You're only going to buy the first bag. Then you're going to start developing the profit from there and developing it. So that's what I would suggest you should do. Don't neglect it. Look at it and say, how can I best start? And what is my product market fit?
Thanks,
I hope that
Chris.
helps. I see.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Shirley. I see Ntokozo. Sorry, Dube has got their hand up. You may go.
You had Juan first. I don't know if
Oh,
you want to
Juan,
take
is he
that
still
one, and
around?
then it's
Okay,
going to
Juan, sorry.
Thank you so much. Oh, now I dropped the hand because you recognize. Good morning. Am I audible, Mr. Chris?
Yes, you're audible 100%, sir.
Okay, cool. Thank you for this session. I'm sorry to join late. My issue is, thank you, Shirley, for your question, and the response was quite insightful. I think every AIP publisher should consider experimenting with this podcast segment, because you never know what will work instead of just doing one thing. My question is with this issue of LLMs, there's too many of them. My question is, would you suggest that one experiments with all of them, or maybe just stick with one that works? Because one thing I've noticed is that if you pay for a subscription, it performs way better than the free version. But now, as a community newspaper or publisher, it's not so easy to pay for these things because they are quite expensive. Would you suggest we try one, or maybe experiment with all of them? The last one is the issue of ethics. We are part of the 4 newsrooms that are going through the Thomson Reuters Foundation's AI mentorship program. There's quite a lot of experiments that we are running. One of our mentors is saying that is encouraging that we should, in a way, disclose where AI assisted us in producing content, be it in the generation of articles or video or text, images, and all that stuff. But now we've got this issue that you mentioned. When we disclose too much, will the audience still respect the newsroom? How do you feel about that? Because you said that we must not disclose. You suggest that we shouldn't disclose too much. But the other guys on the other side, they're saying that you should disclose so that people know, or I don't know. How do you feel about that? Thank you so much.
Great question. So I'll tackle that one first, right? So I think the prerogative here is on the newsroom. So number one, I would like to say that if you do have AI integrated in your editorial policy, and you know that you've got an editorial policy, perhaps the editorial policy reference should be the one that is the disclosure, whether it is you integrating an editorial policy on your footer of your website or on every article, there is a disclosure. Because at the end of the day, you're not, yes, AI is a problem, but you're not disclosing everything that you're doing, right? So for example, let's take images. Yes, definitely. If images are depicting a face of a person, I think it is ethical to say this is not a real person, or you can say this is AI generated. So that's images, all right? But then you wouldn't do the same thing for an illustration, right? Because an illustration could have been something that you generated on Photoshop, and in Photoshop, there's actually an AI generator itself inside Photoshop. So you're going to disclose that this image was generated using Photoshop's AI. So I don't think so, because it is an AI tool on its own. So when it comes to article and assists, kind of contributions, are you also saying that you're using, let's say, you are using Grammarly? Are you going to credit Grammarly if you don't use any of the LLMs? So that's also an AI tool. So where does it stop? So I think at the end of the day, it's really about gauging whether the mentor is talking about disclosing, maybe might be referring mainly for video and images and also articles perhaps, but I think you should be covered as a newsroom if it's in your editorial policy. And it does not create that perception that, well, you're just generating content using AI. So to tackle your first question, which are kind of forgotten, but I'll try and remember it quickly. So you mentioned podcasting, etc. I don't know if there was a question there, but you're saying everybody should actually get on the bandwagon to do that. Can you just remind me of that question?
The issue of LLMs, there's too many LLMs. Which one would you say, like, okay, go with one, or maybe just try everything?
Okay, fantastic. So how we do it here at Student Living is that we choose the right horse for the race. Okay, so this will make sense. We choose the right horse for the race, meaning that we know Claude is really good at dissecting PDF documents. So we use Claude for that. Unpack this document and extract key findings that are going to be of importance for the students, the students and our readers for Student Living. So pretty much right there, that's done. Then we take that information, because you're the originator of the article. You know where you're going about writing about this document. So you put your first draft in there, and you take the information from Claude and chuck it into ChatGPT. If you've been teaching ChatGPT about your editorial style, the grammar, how you phrase things, now you take that information and chuck it into ChatGPT and you say, using our style as Student Living, with this first draft and this information, can you please see how best it will flow? Now you're asking ChatGPT to see where best to include that information in the article. I'm not saying it's rewriting your article. You've got the first draft. You know where you are going with this article, but now it's putting in stats, it's putting in relevance. All right, so that's ChatGPT, and then I take it to Notebook LM. That's if I really want to re-listen to the article. I put it to Notebook LM and I say, generate a podcast or a conversation. What Notebook LM then does, it takes these two people, a woman and a man, and they're discussing the article. And I sit back and I listen. And I say, if Notebook LM is actually reading it this way, I'm sure that my readers will actually understand it. And that's pretty much choosing the right horse for the right race.
Okay, Thank you.
All right, I think we are out of time. If there's any other questions, please do share. But I think Nell is gonna wrap up with tomorrow's program.
There was a question, I think Mtoko ZC, I'm not sure if he's still around. Mtoko ZC Dube.
Yes, I'm still here. I was from Cosmos City Chronicles. I just had a question. I'm not sure if it will benefit. I'm just looking to be aware of Chris has helped us understand how to prepare for such things as podcasts and so on. But this would be, I'm thinking this would be mostly for non-live podcasts. Say, for example, as you mentioned, that a recent podcast got in trouble in the past week. How is there assistance for when things go wrong on a podcast? Say you're prepared, you've used AI, you've got everything in order, but now your guest sort of off ramps. And you're live on the podcast. Is there assistance for such things? I mean, I guess we'll find out what happens to the people that recently got in trouble. But being aware of such, should we stick to just because we are small media and don't have too much protection? Should we just stick to doing prepared podcasts and then when it comes to live, maybe not entertain that so much? What would be your advice on this?
Very, very good question. Very good questions. Actually, this question has rocked the podcast business sector in South Africa, whereby all the different podcasts, owners are saying, "Oh, there's a problem here." All right. So, the rule of thumb, I would say, is that we are in media. We are in a credible media landscape. All right. That's the first point. And the credible media landscape is governed by the press code. And the press code has of conduct. All right. So the press code of conduct really guides us in these things, whether it's AI use or whether it is podcasts. And it's also important to be associated, whether it was with AIP, and you are now going to be, let's say, for example, you're with the AIP, then you are with the Press Council. As a member of the Press Council, you are held accountable by the ombudsman. So at the end of the day, that's the rule of thumb for me. But also, it's critical to understand the benefits that you will get from being a member of institutions like the South African Editors Forum, SANEF. Because with SANEF, you have got some muscle in terms of advisory and litigation in things that maybe might go wrong. So, for example, they do a lot in terms of detecting and condemning things, so you're covered. So you as a news editor wanting to go into this space, yes, you choose your right kind of format, whether it's live or whether it is pre-written, but you prepare before an interview. So just like you would do for a television interview, depending on the style of your podcast, not to copy television, but you going in there prepared. Either you as the host, meaning the anchor, interviewing someone, interrogating information. So you should not have any room to actually worry about someone going off the rails. But if it is live, then it is your responsibility you are the anchor, you are the host. You are then supposed to bring that interview back, which is what these boys didn't do. They went on and on about something which shows ignorance. All right. So you are a media practitioner. You own a publication. You should not be worried about any litigation as long as you understand the press code and press council objectives. So I hope that answers your question.
It does, my brother. Thank you so much. I think I've got the answer. Yes.
Fantastic.
All right. I think that will be Langelihle. Hi, Leonard, do you have a question?
Yeah, I'm not having a question. The fact of the matter is that I'm requesting that you share the slides.
Okay. All right. Not the
In
slides
my
will be shared.
email address. Thank you.
Okay. All right, no problem. Thank you so much for that. The slides will be shared. If you don't mind just muting yourself.
Let me just go to okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone. Today we didn't just talk about journalism. I mean, we reimagined it, how it all works, from solutions journalism, which is what inspires change, to AI in the newsrooms, which is going to boost creativity. And then we dived into podcasting, and that brings stories to life. So we've explored all the tools and ideas that we can transform how the newsroom operates, in the future and now. So now what we have to do really is to just keep on being curious, keep on innovating, and just take responsibility. So the story, or rather the future of storytelling, is in our hands, and it starts right now. So thank you so much to our speakers. Thank you so much, Shirley. Thank you so much, Chris. And thank you to each and everyone who was able to make it today to join the sessions. So please do share your emails, or you can send us direct messages to share the slides with you, and then do join us tomorrow. I have shared our program over here. Tomorrow we are going to have Dr. Kate Skinner, who is going to be sharing about independent media, and then we are also going to have Juan Dambuza, who is going to share TikTok for newsrooms. So we hope you do join us tomorrow again. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Have a blessed day further.
Thanks, Neo.
Thanks,
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, everyone.